Hello, dudes, dudettes, duders, and everyone in between. When starting a career in film, there's one question that is very often overlooked, and that's the one concerning the shape you want your business to grow into. When I talk to the freelancers we hire, they seem to have something like a plan for the career. Find clients, distinguish themselves from the competition by providing excellent service, and ultimately raising their rates as they get busier. But when I try to talk about the shape of their actual legal business, things get a lot more nebulous. And I totally get it. When you're starting out, your main focus is getting the service in place because without a viable service, financial success and growth isn't really a pressing concern. So if you're a filmmaker at the start of your career and you're already feeling overwhelmed with the complexities of getting the engine to turn, don't let this video frustrate you or slow you down. Consider it a snack to ingest and leave roiling in the back of your mind until you have the bandwidth to address the concerns of your business. I've been producing for 2 decades now, and honestly, this is just a list of things that I wish I'd been considering from day one. I'm not saying that I would have been able to execute on all of them from the jump, but having some understanding of how my business runs in parallel to my career has only accelerated the growth of both. So it's a stern warning I'm giving you: be better than me. And look, if you don't enjoy it, you can always go back to being worse than me. It won't cost you a nickel. Before we get into the grist of it, though, I'd like to clarify what I mean when I say that your career and your business are two distinct concerns. Simply put, your career is always in the room with you. Your business doesn't have to be. And if you want to scale up in a meaningful way, you have to build a business that can function without you being in the room with it. If you can build a successful career and a functioning business, the two will feed each other. The work you do day to day, that is your career, will bring money into the business. The business will allow you to focus on the work you do by taking care of the things that aren't interesting to you. Perhaps it's filing taxes or tracking receipts and invoices that doesn't excite you or get you paid. Maybe it's generating deal memos and contracts that doesn't interest you or get you paid. Whatever it is, if you hope to take your artistic impulses past the hobby stage, there will eventually be some aspect of your responsibilities that doesn't fit with your personality or the reality that there are only 24 hours in a day. So, what are the questions that you should be asking yourself as you work towards a business that properly complements your career? Number 1, when should I incorporate? Answer: yes. Personally, I recommend incorporating day one. There are a million reasons to do this. I'm only going to give you the ones that have actually affected our business. The first one's a no-brainer, really. If you want a business bank account, you need to be legally incorporated, even if it's as a humble sole proprietor LLC. You'll be surprised how quickly you run into a client whose accounting department says they need a business account and an EIN to make a payment. Yes, I know it, you know it, they know it. It is absolutely possible for them to wire money from their business account to your personal account, but they don't want to, and there's a legitimate reason why. It's their tush on the line if the project goes south, and then their manager is asking them to explain why they just hired some schmuck off the street and not a real business. When dispersing funds, the most rudimentary check a business can do is make sure they're working with another actual business. Do you really want to give them a reason to consider another vendor? Also, you might get to a point in your trajectory where you need a small business loan. Perhaps it's for some equipment or to cover staff costs for a slow-paying job. Whatever your reasons are, guess what? A bank doesn't want to give a wad of cash to a business that's only existed on paper for 2 weeks. Don't wait until you need a loan to incorporate. It doesn't matter what your personal track record is. It doesn't matter that you've been operating in the green for a decade as an individual. They aren't lending to you. They're lending to a business. You want to go into that meeting with at least 3 years incorporated and a clear picture of where the money will come from to pay back the loan. There's no picture of your business's capacity to pay back a loan if there's no business. And yes, registering and maintaining a business is expensive. And even worse, filing paperwork with the government is probably not why you got into filmmaking in the first place. But I promise you, as someone who does a considerable amount of corporate video work, you will leave a lot of opportunities on the table if you don't. Now that it occurs to me, don't incorporate. And when you lose a well-paying corporate gig because you don't have a business account, just send their details my way. We'll give you a 10% commission and do a very good job on the project. Question number 2, when should I get insurance? You should get insurance as soon as your business depends on something or someone to function. If your business depends on a camera for its survival, insure the camera. If your business depends on a studio space for its survival, insure the studio space. If your business depends on a vehicle for its survival, insure the vehicle and the driver. A good insurance policy can mean the difference between showing up ready to rock and having to call a client with a sob story that I can guarantee you they aren't listening to because they're busy trying to clean up the change in plans. Get coverage for theft. Get coverage for accidents. Production is binary. Either you're there doing the thing or you're not. If the thing gets done, you'll likely get called back. If the thing doesn't get done, you won't get called back. If you need a thing to do a thing, insure the thing you need. Also, a bonus tip, have money set aside for general liability insurance. We didn't get that day one, but as with the business bank account, it wasn't too long before we had a corporate offer on the table that was only available to us if we had $1 million liability policy. We were going to be shooting around some industrial equipment, and if a lens were to fall into the gear, we'd be on the hook, not them. We took out a $3 million policy and had the COI in their lap within 24 hours. That policy absolutely ate into our profit margins on that shoot, but it wasn't devastating by any means. Since then, they've re-upped with us, and we've re-upped on the policy. Question number 3. When do I get an accountant? To which I say, wait, you don't have an accountant? You should have had one since the day you turned 18. Here's a game we play every year. I send our accountant all of our financials for the year. He does up our returns and tells us what we owe. While he's working on that, though, I go to freetaxusa.com and do a return to the absolute best of my ability. Our accountant always gives us a lower number owed on the business and a better return on the personal filings. The difference between the two numbers hovers around 10x what we pay him. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. The more complicated your life and your business become, the larger that gap between what you're able to understand about tax code and what a professional is able to understand will only grow. You wouldn't trust your clients to adjust the settings on your camera. You shouldn't trust yourself to adjust the settings on your tax return. At the start, the difference between a return that you file and one that an accountant files might not be that great. But the gap grows. Once you have kids, health insurance, office space, freelancers, staff, consultants, equipment purchases, rentals, sales, and so many meetings at so many coffee shops, the accountant will be able to tie all of that information together with incentives and support programs that you aren't even remotely aware of. Nor should you be. You should be busy making movies because the clients pay you to set the cameras, not to fiddle with your tax returns. And here's a bonus tip. Don't go with the chain. Go with a specialist who at least focuses on small businesses. If you live in a state with a lot of production, you can absolutely find an accountant who not only specializes in small business, but also film production. They don't even have to be in the same city where you're living and working. The truth is, I have no idea where my accountant is. We communicate entirely online, and once a year I get a package from him with a ream of paper that represents our annual filings and also functions as a reminder of how little I know about tax code. The bigger the ream of paper, the less I know, and the happier I am not to be doing it. Question number 4. Where do I invest once the business starts chugging along? This is my favorite of the questions, and I intentionally saved it for last. If you do the work, maintain a good bedside manner with clients, and have a bit of a creative spark inside of you, more likely than not, you're going to get a rhythm, and with that rhythm will come profits. So, where do you put that money to make the most of it? The answer to that lies at the heart of the question people forget to ask when they're getting started. What do you want your business to look like? There's a temptation to spend those hard-earned dollary dues on equipment because it's new and shiny and, quite frankly, pretty cool. I just shot on the Canon R5 recently, and now I have a B&H cart filled with 15 grand of equipment waiting for me to click the ruin my credit score button. It sounds stupid when I say it out loud, but come on, the proof is in the pudding. These shots look way better than anything I could have ever produced on my 5D with my $100 Nifty 50. The point being, gear is very fun. That said, I'd encourage you to think less about gear and more about how to build a business that will survive in your absence. For example, at my company, we invest more in staff than we do in equipment, and it's paid off handsomely. Those investments in staff don't even feel like a bummer burn. Actually, those are the projects that I get most excited about week to week. What we've been doing are internally generated live streams. We hire a musician to come into the studio, and then we hire a team and spend that time ironing out every workflow concern that comes up. We hammer away at tying audio to picture and getting the signal out on a fixed schedule. The demands of these projects not only stretch every muscle of the crew, but they do so in a safe environment. Staff can experiment, get a feel for how I run shows, and perhaps most importantly, make mistakes. We keep a really slim margin of error when on a client shoot, and that means that we reduce risk to the absolute minimum. But you learn more from mistakes than you ever could from a success. And this investment consistently pays off better than any gear purchase ever could. It creates a situation where, with as little as 24-hour notice, I can book a team and know that they're going to show up, work to spec, and conduct themselves in front of our clients in a predictable manner, whether I'm in the room or not. You can rent gear at a fraction of the cost of purchasing it. Renting a team with an established workflow, though, ends up costing 10 times what you'll spend if you build it yourself. In fact, if you're local to LA and you think you'd like to swing by one of these productions as crew, feel free to hit me up. But if you do swing by, you better be ready to answer a few questions about where you hope to be headed with your career and your business. If you found this video useful, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell for notifications and telling me why I'm wrong in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Now please turn off YouTube and go build your own career/business.